Hey folks, Uncle J.
Kev.
And now we are free flying our way into the Senate.
Oh, the Senate. When they're not worried about who's juicing.
They got important stuff to screw up. Now they've gone from fiddling with baseball to attempting to lose the war in Iraq. That thin-lipped, milquetoast, cream in the coffee cadaver from Nevada has teamed up with our own senator here in Wisconsin, Senator Russ Feingold.
Oh, you meant Harry Reid?
Yeah.
Didn't I put him down a year ago, so he shut up, and then now they're bringing it back up again?
It's the exact same thing, and they made it worse. They actually took last year's bill and made it worse. And we'll talk about that. It's actually called the Safe Redeployment from Iraq. Because we wouldn't want a reckless redeployment, which is what obviously W had in mind.
Obviously.
We're going to recklessly.
Putting as many U.S. soldiers in trouble as possible.
Which is, oddly, what we're going to talk about this bill probably does. And since at least one of us is going to Iraq, when, about next spring?
Yeah. Right around there.
Oh boy! So this is a little up close and personal for Kev, and I'm just offended by the fact that first of all, I can't figure out what they want to happen. All right, let's go over the specifics of this so we know what we're talking about. The bill says that within 120 days, no money can be spent on anything
of enactment of the bill.
Of enactment of the bill, no money can be spent on anything but redeployment and a few very specific things that the Democrats have decided they're going to allow us to do.
Intel-driven targets is one of them. Targeted
operations against Al-Qaeda, although we're not allowed to actually send our guys out to gather any intel or find out where they are. We just, I guess, are going to magically know where to take them out.
You know, food and bullets, but
beans and bullets for our own troops, security for our own troops.
And third-party nationals that are their contractors.
The U.S. Legion.
Yeah. The 160 or 1,000 civilians that are working in Iraq and Kuwait.
Okay, but then here's the troublesome part. It says that we are allowed to train Iraqi security forces unless they've been involved in sectarian violence or attacks against the U.S.
Also without us embedding. We can't embed anybody.
Yeah, we can't embed with any troops or go on combat operations or support them on combat operations. So we're allowed to train the Iraqis and then send them off on their own with no U.S. support. Now, the bad part about the training is it says we can't train anyone who's been involved in sectarian violence. Now, I don't know if anybody was paying attention, but the whole Anbar awakening involved taking Sunni insurgents, more or less, quite a few of them, who were involved in operations not only against us, but against definitely the Shia.
It's more than just Anbar. I mean,
look at the Mahdi army.
Saladin, I mean, yeah, Mahdi army, and which is, I think that's Saladin.
If you look at every piece of the Iraqi security forces, the army, the national police, the local police, quite a few, that's probably 50% plus of those folks are probably at some point involved in sectarian violence. So essentially, what fine senators there are doing is they're putting handcuffs, shackles, and a ball and chain on our ability to train any of those folks, and essentially we'd have to tell them to disband probably about half of their forces. Well, it's ridiculous. It's scary.
You know, I'm gonna make this point. It's what it's gonna do either create, you know, because the commanders on the ground have to deal with the Iraqi commanders on the ground,
right? And
they have to trust each other. I mean, the only way to get through all this is create trust with Iraqi forces, with U.S. forces, with the Iraqi people. Did you just flip me off?
No.
Seriously. And
I was pointing at the camera.
And what it'll do is create this mistrust, because obviously Iraqi forces are going to say, well, you can't get rid of 30% or whatever percentage it is. Just cast them aside, and U.S. forces are going to go, hey, Yep. Nope. Bad guy.
Sorry.
Nope. Bad guy. We're not going to train you. We're just going to cast you out.
You go sit on the sidelines while we train the guys we're allowed to.
So it's a ridiculous. It's going to create hostility. Hostility that doesn't need to happen, because, you know, General Petraeus, obviously, because the surge didn't work, and obviously his ideas haven't worked.
Now let's look at the impact of this and get back to what the Democrats are trying to make happen, because what will happen if they get their wish here is they'll take the only strategy in Iraq that we've had that has done any good at all, which was counterinsurgency, which meant getting out among the people, living with the Iraqis, providing security for the Iraqi people, so then they'd trust us and tell us where the bad guys are. All right, that's been working great. Everybody agrees with that. So their answer is to go ahead and reverse that completely, and not only do that, but make it worse, make it impossible for us to even support the Iraqis in any way. I don't understand what they could gain. The only thing they could have, if they got their wish and somehow this pipe dream goes through, then they could be on record as having voted to lose the Iraq War, because it would kill the effort. Everything would go back. Al Qaeda would come back. You know, the Shia would split and would start killing Sunni again. The Sunni would stop trusting us. The Anbar would go back to sleep. All those tribes would go back to killing. And you've got the quagmire, and you've got the death machine created by a Democrat-sponsored bill. I don't understand. It's crazy.
I don't know where they're going with it, first of all. I mean, if the only reason possibly that you would ever think about doing this is because they can say, well, this is a bill that says that we're friggin' ludicrous and we don't know what we're talking about.
I mean, it's almost as if they wanted to make sure that nobody trusted them on national security. And the Republicans are pulling a great piece of political judo here by going ahead and voting for cloture so they can bring this dog out onto the floor of the Senate and kick the crap out of it.
The only thing I could possibly think that they would want to do this, Harry Reid and Senator Feingold, was to say that, yeah, we marked our spot in history by doing this, and if it works, then here, we did it. But I just don't. It's not going to work.
Up and change horses when something's working to something that
I'm not defending them, but I just can't figure out where they're going other than create a cult of personality for themselves.
Well, first of all, they're catering to the howling mobs in the fever swamps of the left who will not have this war. First of all, it's an unjust war. Bush lied his way into it. 600,000 Iraqis have been killed. You know, billions of our dollars, trillions of our dollars have been wasted. And they require that it end. Not that we win, but that, and they're scared to say that we want to lose, but they want it to end. And you can't end war, as we've discussed. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Right now, we're winning. And we're on a path that could lead us to a full and total victory we could walk away from smiling. But to go ahead and make this change in strategy at this point, following directly on the heels of a successful change in strategy, I don't know, dude.
I don't know. It
requires willful suspension of disbelief, I believe was the term. And he's coming back to town. You know, Petraeus is coming back. General P, he'll be in town next month, I believe. Yeah, I think it's April. Beginning of April, General Petraeus will once again be wasting his time talking to a bunch of people who aren't listening to him and listening to their crafty
maybe we get another really nice MoveOn.org.
Do it again, Move On. I dare you. I double dog dare you.
Come on, New York
Petraeus ad, you gutless weasels. You ain't got a hair on them if you don't move on.
I mean, we're seeking regional stability here. I mean, obviously the region is in flux. I mean, we've got what's going on with Israel, Hezbollah, the really nice Code Pink outreach program.
Don't get the Marines out of Berkeley yet, dude. The Hezbollah Code Pink Alliance will get
I don't know. They just got their main guy whacked, which is pretty cool.
That happened.
Okay, and he did not. And obviously, they are just.
That's something we should mention, actually, is Bill Raggio over at the Long War Journal was discussing a report that Mugnier, who was the Hezbollah terrorist leader who got his head blown off in Damascus by a headrest bomb that our Zionist neocon overlords
You don't
planted.
know. They said they denied it. Mossad decided.
I saw them do it. But the bottom line is, Raggio reported that Mugnier was a co-founder of the Mahdi army, and that he recruited Jordanians and Kuwaitis to come to Lebanon to training camps where they conducted all the kidnapping and IED making and other horrifying stuff that the Shia militias were doing and the Mahdi army was doing. And he was part of creating that whole thing as a terror arm, and then they were infiltrated into Iraq through Iran with Quds Force Revolutionary Guards. And that's some amazing stuff.
And I believe there is a story out there about a Jordanian going through this process, being moved in through, going in and fighting Fallujah.
Yep.
And the attacks they were doing weren't against U.S. forces, not against the imperialist army. All he could see was the imperialist, horrible U.S. forces that are out there doing good things for the Iraqi people. And he then questioned himself, why am I blowing up or destroying Arabs? Left, went back to Jordan, and then soon after the attacks in Jordan happened on those two hotels.
Right.
So obviously there is some validity out there, and there are some other sources out there that prove Bill's point.
And the larger point being that if Iran through Syria, and they're both clients of, or Hezbollah's client of both Syria and Iran, is using Hezbollah's terrorist mastermind to create new terrorists to infiltrate into Iraq and fight us, it kind of points out a good reason we might want to be there.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, aside from the fact that it's a dangerous place overall, cutting and running now leaves all those folks in control of the field. That's insane.
You leave a huge power vacuum right there, and at that point we have to retake, or we don't.
Yeah, Obama, we're going to re-invade. That's what we'll do. We'll pull back and then we'll re-invade if Al-Qaeda does what Al-Qaeda will obviously do.
No. Only if Al-Qaeda is in Iraq. Well, then Senator McCain has to say, well, you don't understand. There is an Al-Qaeda, hence the name Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
There's a there.
And the 5-year-old foreign policy prodigy Obama,
Indonesian kindergarten trained,
said, well, I already know there's an Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So how does he support this bill?
I'm sure he's got to be for it. I mean, he's pull him out as soon as possible. He was 60 days, not even 120. He wasn't even getting him that long. So the other part you brought up earlier was Turkey.
Well, yeah,
Turkey's in Iraq. Turkey's in Kurdistan right now.
So the United States, is trying to bring in regional stability and trying to push back the Turks fighting the PKK. Yeah, the PKK. Trying to get
has been doing terrorist stuff, bad
stuff, and here's a region that's stabilized and becomes safe and understands.
For this region, it's like paradise, man. Yeah. But it's in flux too. And if we leave, Turkey has problems with their own Kurdish population, and now they definitely got problems with the Iraqi Kurds. And between those two, they're very interested in Kurdistan. Turkey's not very interested in Kurdistan at all.
Neither is Iran. But I mean,
they've got their Kurds too. Yeah. I mean, they've all got all those people, and all those are in play. And the answer that the brilliant leaders of the Democratic Party have come up with is cut now, run later. And maybe we'll run back in if things get really bad. That hurts me a little bit to think about. And it scares me to think of the distinct possibility that President Obama could be in charge of our foreign policy and the military and could do stuff like that.
No, he said it himself. He was in Indonesia when he was 5, had an epiphany that it was a 5-year-old foreign policy prodigy. I feel safe.
No, you don't, dude. You told me before we started filming this that you were scared to death. You're going to get over there. If we hadn't mentioned it earlier, Kev's going back next spring. Going back with the same guard unit I was in, and he's been over there one time previously with. So this is it's pretty freaking close to home when you talk about allowing the people who currently are the leadership of the Democratic Party to form our policy. It scares me immensely, and I'm not even likely to get blown up. I really wish. I'm glad it's going to get debated. I'm glad it's going to see the light of day so that they have to stake out their claim. And I'm glad they're going to have to vote. Clinton's going to have to vote. McCain's going to vote.
Here's what's going to have to happen. The Democrats are going to have to, throw away all sense of any form of reason and call General Petraeus a liar. They're going to have to call him a liar again. And that all he is a figurehead over there, and that the surge isn't working. Although
they've all had to backtrack and admit it's working. Now their only claim is the political process isn't working. But it's been working too. Everything's against them. They've passed an awful lot of political reconciliation. Things are going decently as far as that. They got provincial elections set. All the things that are supposed to be happening. Every time they try to lose this war, those damn Iraqis screw them up. They screw them over. They awaken an Anbar.
Although, okay, Mr. Obama did say, and we got to wrap this up soon. Senator Obama did say that this wouldn't have the Al Qaeda would never have been there if it wasn't for GW and going in. Yeah. Of course, seeing as Saddam Hussein's fine record of human rights and all the fine things he did for the region.
He harbored quite a few Palestinian terrorists.
And his sons, Uday and Qusay, the fine Iraqis that they are, and
Fed tangos.
Love it. Yes. So I do believe that we.
It's a net gain in the end, but it's important that we don't allow these last-ditch efforts of the Democrats to lose this war to come to fruition. It's crazy. They don't. Their plan leads to nothing but a loss and the loss of lives, and that's shameful. We can't allow it to happen. So,
no.
Call your congressman. We'll get the ball rolling
Call
tomorrow.
the Senate.
Let's jack it up. Let's jack up the Senate. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's about it. So anyhow, I'm Uncle Jay. That was the Free Fly.
I'm Kev. Have a good weekend.